are we live? Oh, great. Oh, now I know we are. Okay. Hi, guys. Hi. Oh, good. You're all still awake. I was so worried with this hour that if I said anything to you, I was going to get nothing. Okay, so raise your hand if you came here expecting a panel. Oh, good. Okay, so only a couple of you actually were expecting that. All right, so raise your hand if you've been to one of my mental health streams before. Oh, that makes me feel good. I like that. And you guys can hear me okay in the back? Do we need to get more up in it? Okay, I'm being told that there we go. All right. All right, so if you've been to one of my mental health broadcasts before, this is basically going to go a lot like that. That was my goal for this. A lot of you actually were coming up saying you were excited for the panel. That's why I was even asking that. Rather than doing a panel, which is what I kind of signed on for initially, I wanted to make sure that instead of this just being back and forth, that there was a cohesive message, that there was something, hopefully, that you guys can take away from this when you go home. So instead of doing a panel, the way we're going to do this is we're going to kind of go along that same way that I usually do the mental health streams. So if you've never been around for one of those, this is what I usually get into right when we start things off. I used to be a corporate drone. Many of you can relate to that feeling. So my last presentation was a lot different from this one, but I always did the same thing. Whenever I was teaching my sales training classes or my management training classes, I was a young woman working in a male-dominated industry, and I was teaching a bunch of people with decades of sales experience, sales. So in order for me to not get dirty looks from people when I got up in front of them and said, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do your jobs that you've been doing for the past, your whole lives, I would always let them know, here's why I do this. I have all this experience in sales. I'm not just reciting stuff from a book. This is stuff that I have lived and experienced in my own life. So the things that I tell you are based on that. So that's why we do things this way for my mental health talks and for my streams. I want you to know that I can relate. I don't want to just come up here and give you a bunch of feedback or a bunch of ideas on what you can do if you don't understand that this is stuff I'm doing too. So the format of this is going to be me telling my story, and then from there I'm going to go into my 5 steps to better mental health, and from there then I want to be able to hear from all of you. So this will be interactive. You will have an opportunity to speak. I know a few of you had reached out hoping for an opportunity to share some of the things that you have learned about mental health, and that is absolutely my goal, because it is not just about me. And one of the things that I absolutely learned early on is I don't know shit about shit. And by the way, if anyone at home is watching, can you just start the swear counter? I'm donating $1 for every curse. I'm doing my best to not do it, but for St. Jude swear jar, we'll just get that started. Someone in chat will do it. I know someone at home's got this. All right. So how are you guys today? Good. I like that you guys are actually verbally responding. This pleases me greatly. All right, I'm gonna try not to get emotional. Sometimes it happens. If it does, don't worry. I'll shake it off fast enough. But we'll just jump right into it. Mental health is incredibly important to me because I've struggled with it for almost my entire life. If you aren't aware of my story, if you haven't been to one of those streams before, we'll just start at the beginning. My birth mother is a wonderful woman, but unfortunately, when I was a baby, she was going through a lot. She was addicted to drugs, cocaine being apparently the biggest one for her. And when I was 10 months old, she abandoned my brother, sister, and I, and she left us with my grandparents. So we're very fortunate because instead of just leaving us, she brought us there under the premise that we were going to be babysat and then disappeared. So we were 3, 2, and basically 1 years old, and my grandparents then had kind of a tough choice to make. They had already raised 7 children together, and they were getting ready to retire. They had a nice cushy existence, everything was going well, and suddenly they had 3 babies, and they didn't really know what to do with us. So they had pretty limited options. My grandparents are wonderful people. They didn't want us to have to go to the state because they had been advised that people don't generally adopt siblings. So there's a good chance we would all be split up. And aside from that, my older sister was born with a liver disease. It's called biliary atresia. And she was very sick for her entire life. If you guys were there for my St. Jude stream, you probably heard a little bit about that as well, because it's why I'm so passionate about these events. So my grandparents had to very hastily decide what they were going to do, because if any of you have had to deal with a sick child, you'll know that unless you have a parent or legal guardian present, it doesn't matter how sick that child is, they can't do anything. So my grandparents made the incredible decision to adopt 3 little babies when they were nearing retirement, and they gave us a new life. My understanding is that they never intended to tell us, like, we're your mom and dad now, call us that. But when my siblings started speaking, they started calling my grandparents grandma mommy and grandpa daddy, and then the grandma and grandpa part just dropped off, thank God, because that would have been weird, right? So they just kind of accepted the role of parents. So I wanted to make sure you knew what that was, but from this point on, I will be referring to my parents as my parents. So I was adopted by my grandparents, which makes my family tree very confusing, because when I got adopted, all of my aunts and uncles legally became my siblings. My birth mom became my sister, and then my grandparents became my parents. Exactly. I saw this Jeff Foxworthy joke once years ago, and it was, you might be a redneck if you call your mom by her first name and your grandma your mom. I was like, okay, so that's me. But in reality, I'm super grateful. You know, they did a wonderful thing for us, and they obviously had to make a decision very fast because of how sick my sister was, but they did a lot for us. Now, they also, I think they went about it a good way when they decided to tell us that we were adopted. They had to tell us pretty young. Many of you may have figured this out. Many of you would not have guessed it because of my pale skin, but I am half Mexican. My brother and sister had much darker complexions than I did, but when we were young, especially considering that we were adopted by a Swedish and German family, 3 little brown babies kind of stand out. So I think they figured out pretty early on that they had no choice but to tell us the truth as soon as they could. And so they did. When I was about 7 years old, they told us that we were adopted, and they explained everything. And just to paint the picture a little bit, it was a little strange because I grew up knowing who my birth mom was, but not knowing she was my mom. We had all these pictures of her and stuff in the house because, you know, I was adopted by family. So it's not like when she disappeared, they just tore her photos off the wall and tried to pretend she didn't exist. I just had known that she was someone who had problems, and that's why she wasn't around anymore. So they explained everything, and they had a counselor there, which once again, like, as someone who is so into this mental health thing, I appreciate that they were doing their best to make it an easy transition for us, or at least to make the news a little bit easier for us to digest. So they explained it to us in a kind way. You know, she left not because she didn't want you guys, but she left because she knew that we could give you a better life. Hey, that's a good chance for me to remind everyone, hey, can you mute your phones, please? I get real easily distracted. Just go ahead and just silence those, please. So when I was about 7 years old, on Thanksgiving, they had this counselor here. They explained to us that we were adopted, and they said it was because she wanted to give us a better life. It wasn't that we weren't wanted. It was that she knew that they were in a better position than she was at the time because we had been living on the south side of Chicago, and you know, she was messed up. It was just unfortunate. The counselor tried to help us kind of cope through it, and she had each of us write a letter to our birth mom with what we wanted to know about her life, knowing that, you know, no one knew where she was. We didn't know if she was alive or dead. We just knew she was gone. And just to give you an idea of our state of mind at the time, I asked if she had any animals, because I really like animals. I mean, I pet the hell out of your dog, you know that. My brother asked if she had a Nintendo, and my sister, who was the oldest, asked why she left. So I remember it, especially because I didn't really get it. Like, my sister cried, and I just kept thinking, who cares? Because all my brothers and sisters were there. We had this awesome, supportive family. So I'm like, this is fine. Who cares? I'm adopted. Okay, who cares? Like, just carry on. But an important thing, as I kind of look back in my past, an important thing that I did realize there is that nothing changed in my life. Nothing physical changed. You know, I still went to the same school, I still had all the same people around me, but something in my mind did change. There was a little thought that was planted, and it kind of grew as the years continued. This is the part where I try not to. My family was very big. At times when we wanted to stay together and have family parties and stuff, we would have to rent out our church gymnasium because it was the only place that could fit us. Because my immediate family, if you can imagine, like we were all still relatively young at the time, but being the youngest of 10, which is what happened when I got adopted, when they started getting married and having kids and stuff, our immediate family, just my brothers and sisters and parents, is like 40-something people. So you get aunts and uncles, you get a lot of people, and suddenly we've got a real crowd. So we rented out the gymnasium, and I remember my first run-in, I guess, with mental health was when I was somewhere around 10. We go to the church, we're there for a family party, and I remember it pretty vividly because we walked in, and it was a single set of double doors, and then you would turn right away, and there's another set, and then there's this big open gym, and you know how people are at parties. You kind of group up. You have a few people sitting, a few people standing, people kind of crowded up, wandering all over. We walked in the door, and someone came and scooped up my older sister right away. She was such a sweetheart. Everyone loved her. So she kind of ran off with one of my sisters or one of my brothers. My older brother was just a ball of energy, so he just took off like he had been chugging Mountain Dew that day and ran off to hang out with my brothers. My parents went off to do whatever it is that they had to do, probably work in the kitchen or something, get stuff ready for everyone. And I just stood there. And a lot of you can probably relate to this feeling. I looked around and I was looking for that opening. I was looking for what my brother saw when he took off like a rocket and went after my brothers. I was looking for someone to wave and say, "Come sit here." And I didn't see it. That was the first time in my life, at the age of 10, that I remember thinking they don't want me here. So I ran. I left out of that room and I just ran down the hallway. I found a random office to go into, and I went and I sat inside the closet and I had a panic attack. And I didn't know what it was. A lot of you guys can probably relate to that. Like, you have a panic attack, and the first thing that you think is what? Go ahead and say it out loud. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when panic disorder kicks in and you have an attack? Dying. Exactly. I thought I was dying. And what's worse about it is that not only did I think I was dying, but I thought there's something wrong with me. So I had a panic attack as a young child in this closet, and just thought I was dying, started shaking, started sobbing. And after it kind of passed and I was able to calm myself down, I just had this thought, like, I can't tell anyone. I can't tell anyone that just happened. They'll know that something's wrong with me. And it was at that point that the idea that had been very, very slightly planted at a very young age really took hold, and my mind committed to the idea that I was unwanted, that I was the reason that my birth mother left. I'm just going to pace a little bit here if you don't mind. So things got a little worse for me after that, because a lot of you can also probably relate to this. Once you have an idea in your mind, everything shifts to fit that narrative. If you decide that people don't want you around, you start seeing that in every social situation. You see someone, and maybe they're just distracted, maybe they got a phone call, but you take it as they're looking at their phone because they don't want to talk to me. Negativity bias. Exactly. That bias, it really messes with you. So I got that bias in my mind at a very young age. And as my mental health issues grew, that bias continued to feed into it. It continued to tell me they don't want you here. You are unwanted. You are the reason for this. So I remember one of the things that we talk about a lot in stream is sometimes, like, I really believe a lot in making sure that we have this mental health discussion and things like this available from a very young age, because I really think that's super important. One of the things that I was told from a young age on, and a lot of you have dealt with this too, if you have illness in your family, if you have people going through things, I was told, stay strong. And what I took that as is, don't show emotion. And I remember one of the times when my sister was going in for a surgery, that was one of the things that was said to me, is stay strong for your sister, stay strong for your parents. And what that did to me is it told me, don't cry, don't show emotion, whatever it is you're feeling, don't show anyone, because it shows them that you're weak. It shows them that you're not there to support them. So I spent a lot of my life doing that stay strong mentality, and it really didn't help me. And I remember when I was probably somewhere around 14, my parents finally started to see that something was wrong, that staying strong for me was hurting myself. That staying strong for me was hating myself. It was keeping quiet. I became a really reclusive person. Like, I was a pretty bubbly kid up until that panic attack. And then the next few years were kind of all downhill for me. I started hiding out in my room a lot more. I started to really dig deep on the self-loathing, and I hated myself 100%. I started hurting myself. I started doing drugs and drinking at a very young age. And, for an additional note here, because I did see there were a few young people that came in, we talk a lot about adult things, obviously, in my stream, and I do discuss that I'm an advocate for marijuana usage in safe states or safe spaces. But if you are young, and this is, I'm glad that this is being broadcast. If you're young, I did it, don't do it. There's, like, you guys are all smarter than this. There's so much science out there. It's not good for growing minds. I think all of the things that I was going through were very heavily exacerbated by the fact that I was smoking and drinking and doing all this stuff at such a young age. So please, be good to yourselves. It doesn't serve you. Learn to manage your emotions first, and then as an adult, decide what you want to do with your time. But as a kid, please stay away. So my parents realized that something was wrong. And once again, I'm grateful that my parents were able to recognize that, and that they brought me to get some help as a result. So they brought me to a therapist. I, unfortunately, did not have a great experience with my therapist, but please understand that what I say next has nothing to do with any of you. What I want you to take away from it is completely different than what you might. So I am not going to say don't do medication. I'm not going to say don't talk to someone. I had a bad experience, but there are wonderful therapists and counselors out there. There are lots of people who are on medication that helps them immensely. Having said that, I went to see this therapist when I was 14, 15, and unfortunately she didn't really listen to me. I was put on 25 milligrams of Zoloft. And when I went back to her and told her it was really messing with me, I needed to do something different, her suggestion was to up the dosage. And when I went back to her again and said, this is not good, the thing that I've been dealing with for all this time, my depression, my insomnia, everything I'm going through, it's getting worse. And the medication that she had prescribed, I kind of jumped ahead, but I was diagnosed with severe depression, with panic disorder, and then later in life with ADD, which is now only ADHD. But so she put me on all of that, and then I kept going back and saying, this is bad, I can't do this anymore. And her idea each time was to up the dosage. Skip ahead a few months, and I was 14, 15-year-old girl on 150 milligrams of Zoloft, 150 milligrams of Wellbutrin, and 150 milligrams of Klonopin, because my insomnia was so bad that I was losing it. So I went back to her and I tried to tell her the same thing, like, I can't do this anymore. I was so bad off. My insomnia was so bad I was hallucinating. And if any of you guys have had insomnia that does that to you, reality is messy. Everything is confusing at that time, and especially, like, I was young. I was in high school. I barely knew what was going on in my brain to begin with. And then you add lack of sleep and all of this medication, and it was just a really dangerous cocktail for me. So during that time, I kept telling her, this isn't helping. I'm still thinking about killing myself every day. Every room I go into, I look for ways to do it. And there was a day when I was with my family. I was with my brother and sister, and we were over at our grandmother's house. And this, you know, I told you my family story is weird, so when I say grandmother, this is my biological great-grandmother. But she had found this box in her basement that was full of all this stuff that had belonged to my birth mother, and it was stuff that was ours from when we were little kids. So I was really excited. Because I was adopted at like 10 months old, there's not a whole ton of baby photos, or I don't know a lot about what my life was like as a baby. So we're going through this box, and we came across these baby books. And I got really excited, like, this is it. This is what's finally going to tell me, like, maybe I was a bad baby, maybe I was a really good baby, I don't know. So we find my sister's first, and we open it up, and we're going through it, and it's got her name in it, and it's got pictures. And I was excited just from that because it had my birth mom's handwriting in it, and I didn't have a lot of examples of even that, so, you know, I'm comparing it, like, do I have the same handwriting? My brother's book was next, same thing, all kinds of cute stuff. And then we opened my baby book. And it was empty. Just had my name in it. That bias we talked about, that came back real hard. And suddenly I had everything I needed. I had proof. The little bit of hope I had. It's gone after that. At that point, I knew for sure it was my fault. Everything was my fault. And I just kept thinking about it over and over again. Like, my birth mom had my sister, and she was sick, and she stuck around, even though she had to be in and out of the hospital with her all the time. She had my brother, and stuck around, 2 kids, one of them sick. Still no problem, she was even clean for a couple of years. And then she had me, and she lasted 10 months. So I just imagined that it was all my fault. She couldn't stand the look of me, like she couldn't handle being around me. I was a bad baby, I don't know. But I knew it, that it was my fault. And this all came at a time where I was really over-medicated.
Still at 150 each?
Yep, I was still at 150 each of all those medications at the time. I was still not sleeping. So when I was 15, I took the rest of all of the pills I had. And I tried to kill myself. I'm fortunate that a good friend of mine, who's still one of my best friends to this day, figured out what was happening, came over, kicked my door down, called an ambulance, and got me to the hospital. And I remember even then, my dad came home right as I was being walked out to the ambulance. And I remember passing him in the kitchen and seeing the look on his face. And at the time, you know, that bias kicked in, and I was just thinking, like, great, I screwed up again. I've ruined his day. Now he's going to have to go to the hospital. Now he's going to have to deal with me again. He's mad at me. He's probably thinking, once again, why did I adopt you? Why? I fought really hard to end my life that day. They wanted to pump my stomach, and I broke a bunch of the little straps on the bed. I fought off a bunch of nurses. I was really aggressive, really unkind. I said some real nasty shit to some people. And fortunately, they put me in inpatient. So they did obviously pump my stomach. Everything was taken out of my system. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks after that, roughly. And the whole time I was in the hospital, I'm going to be honest, I still had every intention of finishing the job. I went through all the motions, I went through all the therapy sessions, I did all the group things that they wanted. But every room I went into, I was still looking for outs. Everything I did, I was still thinking, like, I can still do this if I want to. I won't do it here, but I'm going to not fail next time. And the thing that changed it for me was when that stay strong thing actually failed me, and my family came to see me. It was my parents and my brother. And my brother and I were only a year apart, and we were always scrapping. Like, we used to have slap fights. We were wrestling all the time. You know, we were basically brothers. So we didn't show a ton of emotion to each other. We didn't really hug a lot. We didn't say I love you. It was usually just joking around and getting into trouble together, honestly. But I remember as they're in my hospital room, and I'm sitting on my bed talking to them, and I'm doing what a lot of us do when we're in the middle of a lot. I was just smiling and saying, I'm fine. It was just a bad day. No big deal. You know, I was staying strong for my family. And then I looked over, and I watched my brother put his head in his hands and start sobbing. And I never really saw him cry. So seeing my buddy, my brother, who I just kind of, you know, I took us as friends really more than anything. Seeing him start crying kind of broke me a little bit. And I'll just never forget him looking up at me and saying, I just never knew. I never knew it was that bad. I never knew you felt that way. And I don't know, that did it for me. As weird or as simple as that might be, that little thing of finally realizing that someone actually cared, to see him hurting that bad, knowing what I had tried to do to myself. It was at that moment that I decided, even though I didn't really want to, that I wasn't going to let death be the answer. It was at that moment that I decided death or self-harm weren't going to be what I did. And that probably is one of the biggest improvements, I guess, or one of the best things that could have happened to me at that time, just getting that simple concept in my mind. Death or self-harm are not the answer. And this didn't make my life magically turn around. I didn't do a 180 and suddenly I was happy and cheerful, because I had decided that I was going to stick it out and live, because I had decided that I was going to stop hurting myself. But just that simple idea helped a lot. And really, what it did for me is it allowed me to start realizing that I had all these lessons that I had picked up. And I'm so grateful for my brother. I don't know if he's watching. I kind of hope that he is. But the first lesson that I learned out of all of this, and it kind of came a little bit later in my life, is I don't know anything. You guys, you can't predict the future. And for a lot of us with anxious minds, we get so caught up in those what ifs, all of the negative ones. We believe we know exactly how things are going to go. And when you're in that horrible, horrible state of mind and all you can see is negative outcomes, please remember this first lesson. You don't know anything yet. You really cannot predict the future. I could not have predicted where my future would go. I could not have predicted that I'd be doing what I'm doing right here. And I could not have predicted what came next. My birth mom came back roughly a year later, and she had 3 kids with her, 3 beautiful little babies. And during a time when I was feeling super lonely and lost, her coming back into my life with those kids, that was incredible. I'm so grateful for that. And I could not, no matter what I did, I could not have predicted any of this. And I did what a lot of you guys do. I'm telling you, I sat and I thought about, if I take this job, if I do this in school, if I go this route, I know exactly how all of these things will play out. But I didn't know anything. I had no clue that any of that was coming. So that was the first lesson I learned out of that. The next one is much harder. The next lesson that I learned is that the mind-body connection is real. It is real. When my sister was sick, and just for reference, because a lot of us are going to be dealing with really, really awful diagnosis or prognosis where a doctor will say, this is how much you can expect, this is what is coming next. When my sister was born, they told us she wouldn't make it through the night. When she made it through the night, they said she won't see her first birthday. After that, they said she probably won't make it to 3, then 5. Then they said if she does get any older, she won't develop normally. People with this particular liver disease don't generally reach their full height. They generally develop a little bit strangely. Some of their organs don't come fully in. So they said if she makes it into her teens, there's going to be some problems. She's probably going to have a lot of issues. And that was wrong. They said that she wasn't going to make it through that, and she had 3 liver transplants. Everything that they said, I understand why they have to say it, I get it. But just remember that if you ever hear something like that, if you know someone else who has heard something like that, the doctors are basing that on stats, on things they've seen. They don't know you. They don't know your minds. They don't know your resolve. And every time they told my sister she couldn't, she did. She did exactly what she wanted to do. Before her first liver transplant, they told her, you're going to be on a ventilator for at least a week. After this, it'll probably be a few weeks before you get to go home. And my sister hated the vent. It always left her with a really bad, scratchy throat. It's very unpleasant.
How old was she when she got her first transplant?
Her first transplant was when she was 16. So they told her she was going to be on the vent for a long time, and she told them no. And the doctors, as you can imagine, are like, sure, but yeah, you're going to be on it for a while. And she's like, no, I'm going to be off of that. I'm going to go home in a week. I hate the vent. I will not be on that long. I'm going to beat records. Like, she was so confident that she was not going to be dealing with this. She was off the ventilator an hour later. An hour later. She got out of the hospital a week later. They don't know what they're talking about always. They didn't know her resolve. The mind-body connection is real. The next time that I saw that in action was when my sister was rejecting. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, she had 3 liver transplants. There's a million different things that can contribute to something like that, but as you can imagine, living your whole life a little bit sick, having to go in and out of the hospitals, she did a great job of staying upbeat and positive and focused, which is why I think she did so well for so very long. But before her 3rd liver transplant, she got really sick. She got super jaundice, which, if you're not familiar with what that means, like her whole body was green. Her eyes, everything. Like, we went to a store once, and the person who was checking us out asked her, how you do that thing with your eyes? She was like, you need a liver transplant, I guess. So she was in really bad spirits for this last one. It was the first time we had really seen her get really down. And my sister was the exact same height and weight as me. So I'm 5'7", I'm like 140 right now. She was also 5'7", usually around 130, 140. Before her last liver transplant, she was 90 pounds and green and miserable. For someone who was always the one to say, this is how it's going to be, I'm going to do this, I am healthy, I'm going to get through this, you guys don't know me. She was sad. And this was the first time that the mind-body connection was confirmed for me by doctors. They came in at one point and they told her pretty much straight up that she was next up on the list, but if they got a liver, she wasn't going to get it because they cannot do a transplant on somebody who is depressed. Because if your body doesn't want to fight, which is all dictated by your mind, it's not going to. If you go in there not wanting to live, not caring about yourself, they will not give you that organ because your body is not going to fight. So they told my sister that, and she, thankfully, went through some counseling and came out of it and wound up getting that transplant. But I remember thinking at the time, like, really? She needs this liver, and you guys aren't going to give it to her because she's sad. Like, that's crazy. The most notable example that I have of the mind-body connection was from years later. My sister, we lived together. We moved in together when I was like 20, 21, and we had a blast. It was awesome. She got sick. This time it didn't have anything to do with her liver, but because she had a weakened immune system, things kind of attacked her a little bit harder. So she started off with bronchitis. That turned into pneumonia and turned into, I believe it was called necrotizing pneumonia. She was in the hospital for about 3 months. And it was hard. She was really hurting because she had finally gotten into a good groove. She liked her job. We were living together. We were having a lot of fun. And it really hurt that she had been in the hospital again for so long. And she got out. And I remember she came by my work after about three months of being in the hospital. She came by my work, and she was so excited. She had a bag full of junior bacon cheeseburgers, which, you know, if you've ever been in the hospital, like, almost anything sounds good other than hospital food, but, like, we would just smash through junior bakes like it was nothing. So she was super excited. My mom brought her by my work, and she was telling her she was going to go stay with my mom for a little bit just to kind of finish recovering. But she was ecstatic. She was finally out of the hospital again, finally ready to get back to life. And over the night, while she was staying with my mom, she cried out in the middle of the night. She was in a lot of pain. Apparently she had some kind of a blood clot in her leg, and it was hurting her pretty bad. So my mom rushed her to the hospital, and things got worse. They didn't really know how to handle her. A lot of hospitals don't know how to treat people who have been through major surgeries, especially transplants. They generally tend to say, hey, go with the doctors that know your body, that know how to treat you. So that's what they were trying to do. They put her on blood thinners in order to try and take care of the blood clot. And they were planning on airlifting her to the hospital that she was seeing at treatment at the time, and it was in Wisconsin. This was in March, so we got hit with a random blizzard. So instead of being able to airlift her, they wound up having to take an ambulance on a several-hour drive up into Wisconsin. Unfortunately, there were some really sweet nurses who decided, since they were getting off duty, they would ride with her so that my parents could drive separately. But the thing that I will absolutely never forget is being in the hospital room with her as they were getting ready to take her. She was so upset. She had finally gotten out. She was finally going to be able to be normal again. And for the first time, like, she was just, like, inconsolable. It wasn't necessarily that she was super sad. It was that she was over it. And she said some comments that made it sound like she was giving up. And I remember her saying something around the lines of, "Let me go." And naturally, this is my sister, I start crying. And I'm all upset, and I'm telling her, like, no, you have to keep fighting. This is going to be okay. I told her, like, you have to do this. You have to go through this, because if you die, I'm going to die. The doctors made her take off all of her jewelry. They gave it to me. My mom had just bought her a mood ring that she was really enjoying. My sister loved the movie My Girl, so she loved mood rings from that. And the moment that she handed that mood ring over to me and I put it on my hand, I knew my sister wasn't coming home. I felt it. I fully felt it. She had given up. She was over it. She had worked too hard and she had struggled too long, and she was done. The nurses rode with her in a blizzard several hours into Wisconsin, and she was talking the whole time. And as they made it to the parking lot of the hospital, she just stopped talking. I lost my older sister, my best friend, a few months before her 25th birthday. And I fully believe that it's because she gave up. Her body wasn't ready to fight anymore. The mind-body connection is real. You guys really have to want to be here. Really. And there are ways you can do that, but you really just have to know that your mind and your body are connected. It goes both ways. So that was the second lesson that I learned, is that the mind-body connection is real. The third lesson that I learned came from the feeling that I got. Like I said, I felt it. I felt it the moment that I put that ring on. I felt it from everything she was saying. I felt it from every cue I got. My body knew what was coming next. So the next lesson I learned is to trust your gut. I have been in every kind of bad relationship you can imagine. Physically abusive, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, controlling, very unkind, cheaters, everything. I had terrible, terrible relationships. I'm super lucky that I have this wonderful man now. Legit, like he's amazing. But this trusting your gut concept, I realized after all of this time, hindsight is 20/20. I get it. It's always easy to look back, but I ask people all the time when they're asking me for advice, like, what does your gut tell you? Because when I look back in my past, I can look at every one of those relationships and see 1,000 red flags, but they were so small. Even though my gut was saying, this is wrong, don't do it, I was justifying, like, but maybe it was just a bad day for them. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe all of the different things to justify what I was feeling was wrong. And so I just kept going into worse and worse situations because I didn't trust my gut. And if I had done that, I would have certainly gotten a lot farther. I would have avoided so much BS, like even some of the worst of it. One of my ex-boyfriends, the first time I told him that I loved him, he slapped me in the face because I wasn't looking him in the eyes. He made me do it again. And at the time, I'm feeling a horrible gut feeling. I'm imagining all these red flags like, this is bad, this is bad. But I didn't love myself, for one. And two, I justified. I didn't trust my gut. I let my mind tell me, no. He didn't hit you that hard. He's not trying to hurt you. He's trying to help you. He's trying to correct you because you should know to look people in the eyes when you tell them that you love them. Like, that's important. This isn't anything he's doing wrong. This is on me. And for a very long time, I did that with almost everything. I ignored my gut, and then when shit went wrong, I was like, well, it's my fault, but these are all the different reasons why it's my fault. It's not that I ignored red flags. It's that I still did things wrong. Somehow, I brought this on myself. So that was the next lesson, was trust your gut. God, it's just so important, you guys. I know you all feel it. I know you've had those situations where you're talking to someone, or something as simple as you look down an alley. In some alleys you're like, oh, this is a nice shortcut. Other alleys you see them and you're like, I will walk around 4 miles. Trust your gut, guys. There's so much science behind it too. It's really cool. Like, seriously, your gut is a lot smarter than you think. And we'll get into that when we get into the steps and everything. The last lesson that I learned is probably the most important one, I think. And this is one, I said part of the reason I wanted to do this instead of doing a panel is because I wanted you to walk away with something. And the main thing that I like to really emphasize and reiterate for people is you are in control, but you are not alone. You have the ability to shape your mind and your emotions and your life. But when I say that you are in control of it, it doesn't mean you have to take it all on yourself. It doesn't mean stay strong. It means Take control of your life, and if that means going and talking to someone, do it. There is no weakness in that. I had a bad experience, but I've also had plenty of good experiences with psychologists or doctors since then. So you are in control. If things are not going well for you in your life, if you're struggling with your anxiety, if you're struggling with depression, if things are really hard, you are in control. You can change it. But you are not alone, and there is absolutely no harm in seeking help. So please, please, please do it if you need it. So that's my story. That's what I've learned from it. And like I said, none of this caused some immediate 180 where suddenly I was like, oh, all right, guys, I'm happy, I'm here, this is great, life is good. That took work, man. That took work. I started gradually improving based on the simple concept of death or self-harm are not the answer, but I was still really struggling. I've been battling depression and anxiety and insomnia and ADD and all these things for so long. I just accepted it as a part of my life. I believed that I was just never going to sleep again, and that is what it is. I'm just one of those people who doesn't get sleep. I'm an insomniac. This is my life. What I learned and why I'm here and sharing all of this with you, I honestly have learned since probably about the beginning of this year. I didn't have intentions of sharing any of this with you. Like, no offense, I like you all, you're amazing. But I had no intentions of sitting down and working on myself for your benefit. Once again, no offense, but I started working on myself because I needed it. And once again, I'm lucky for this guy because the first thing that he did is he introduced me to meditation. So I'm super grateful for that. But basically, for the past, we're in the 7th month now? Oh my gosh. For all of this time, since the beginning of this year, I've been working on myself a lot. I've been researching a lot. I spend all my time pretty much reading and watching YouTube videos and trying to learn everything I can about my mind and my body because that idea that I'm in control, that is exhilarating to me. I am excited about it. So I did a lot of things for myself and slowly started to notice that I was feeling a lot better. Raise your hand if you've been following my channel for almost my entire career. Like I'm heading on to 3 years here. Okay, raise your other hand with it. Keep the hands up. Raise your other hand with it if you believe there has been an obvious difference in my demeanor or mood since then. Okay, those of you with both of your hands up, just go wee. Yay! Oh my God, you guys are so easy to do that stuff with. Good, okay. So that's why I'm here, because this stuff actually worked for me. And keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. I don't know shit about shit, as I said. I know what I have researched, so you guys can do the same thing I'm doing. You can take my advice, or you can go on the same journey I went on, and you can do a ton of research for yourself and figure out what works for you. But the awesome thing that I have learned is that just about everything we're dealing with can be managed. We can help alleviate our own symptoms of a lot of these mental illnesses that we suffer from by just working on ourselves every day. And it's not always easy. I'll be honest with you. Some of these things I'm going to share in my 5 steps to better mental health, it makes it sound like it's super easy. All you have to do is make these quick changes and then everything feels better. Even those quick changes can be super challenging, but please be proud of yourselves for every step of the way. Baby steps are still steps. If you struggle to get your butt moving in the morning and for a few mornings in a row you actually get out of bed without struggle, be proud of that. Celebrate those little successes. I think that's important. So getting into the 5 steps for better mental health, I want to make sure I don't go overboard because I want to make sure that we have a lot of time to talk to you. The first step is to get organized and eliminate toxicity. So get organized. After my sister died, I quit my job. I was working at Harley at the time, and my manager, I couldn't stand to look at her, to be perfectly honest. I couldn't, because she had caused me to not be able to go and spend time with my sister a few times. She was always like, well, is it emergency? Is it important? Are you sure you really need to go? And as a result, I lost out on a lot of opportunities to be with her before I lost her. So I quit the job. I mentioned my sister and I were living together. We had a rental house. At the time, we had 2 incomes, so it was kind of easy keeping up with it. After she passed away, I basically lost everything. I just couldn't be at that job anymore, so I quit it. It might not have been the smartest thing to do since I didn't really have a safety net. I was working part-time at some local bars and stuff, but it was like basically still winter. So there's not a whole ton of need for someone to walk around with a tray of shots at a bar with 4 people in it. So things got really rough, man. I had to get up every single morning really early and walk down to the gas station, and I would run around the lot and try and find pennies or change of any kind that people had dropped so that I could put a little bit of gas in my tank to make it to any jobs that the local staffing agency could find for me at the time. So I was making sure I got a hold of the staffing agency at 5 a.m. every day in order to try and get 1, maybe 2 jobs a week. I had to eat chicken and rice for months because it was the only thing I knew that I could feed myself and my dogs. And I had no money. I was writing checks that I knew weren't going to cash. I was doing everything I could to try and make it by. So when an opportunity came up for a job at this corporate office, I was excited. It wasn't the best pay. It wasn't the best position, but I was determined to make something of it. So they hired me on as a position that they called a floater. Oh, good, someone else thought of poop. Cool, because that was the first thing I thought as they were like describing me, like, oh, ask the floater, like, really? Okay. So I was a floater. I filled the pop machine, I filed papers, and sometimes they would have me fill in at the front desk and cover the receptionist area, and that was it. But I was so determined to make this into something that I started doing everything I could there. I took classes that had nothing to do with my job, because like I said, my job was filing and filling a pop machine. But anything I saw that I could learn, I asked everyone around me, what is your job like? How does this work? How do all of these departments interplay? Like, I really did my best to learn everything. I started making notes on everything that I could. I kept lists so that I would make sure that I would get everything done at the end of the day before I would go home, and then I would go and ask for more work, and I would add that to my list and check it off as I went. I created a calendar, and I made sure that I checked that calendar every single day, several times a day, including birthdays, like everything. Everything I could think of, I put on there. And as a result of this, the person who started out with no degree, by the way, I have maybe 11 college credits, maybe? I know I went to some of the classes, I don't know. But I had no reason to be there or to be moving up in the company, but within a couple of years, I was running their sales management and distribution department. I got my first promotion 3 months in, the second one 6 months in, and then I steadily received promotion after promotion as I moved through my corporate career. I mentioned I taught sales training classes, and that was at that job. At the job where I started out filling a vending machine and with a title that made me think of poop. And I attribute all of that to my organization. And especially when I got into that role and I had a lot to do. Every single day before the end of the day, I would write a list of all the things I had to do, make sure it's nice and neat. And then every morning when I came back in, I would check that. I checked my calendar religiously. I kept on top of all of it. And as a result, I felt better in my daily life, which I didn't quite put 2 and 2 together until recently. But I also moved up in that job so fast. So organization is super important, especially for those of us who have anxiety, for those of us who get distracted easily. It helps a lot, believe it or not, to schedule a lot, dude. Like even your leisure time. Get a calendar, get organized, write everything down, make lists, check things off of lists. Sometimes the list might seem very long and as a result might seem daunting, but once again, we're going back to celebrating every baby step. Celebrate everything you cross off that list. So I'm sure some of you are in here thinking like, okay, I can make a list about this. Do it. Make the lists. I'm telling you guys, it helps. I am nothing special. Like we're all special in our own unique ways and everything. But there's nothing about me that's so different from you guys that you can't do the exact same thing. Move up in your job, organize your life, clean your house, do all the things. And speaking of cleaning your house, that's another part of Get Organized. I read this really awesome book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Has anyone read that? Marie Kondo? That's an awesome book, isn't it? So what I really liked about this book is this woman basically teaches you how to clean your house and also explains why it's important for your mental health, which I thought was really cool. One of the things that she said that really stuck out to me is that with every item that you have as you're cleaning, you should pick up each piece, every single piece, that goes for all your clothes even, look at it and say, does this bring me joy? And if the answer is yes, then you keep it. If it's no, then you toss it. And joy can be a million different forms of joy. Like, I'm attached to this because I'm sentimental. I like this shirt. I like the way I feel. I like this frame, whatever it is. But if it's like, ooh, but what if I need that in the future? Get rid of it. If it brings you joy, keep it. If it doesn't, get rid of it. So I started doing that in my daily life. I started throwing away more and more stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is so nice. Then I took that same concept of removing toxicity in my life by looking at things and saying, does this bring me joy? And I applied it to the relationships in my life. How many of you have toxic friends or family members? Yeah. And how do you feel when you leave from hanging out with them? You go and you talk shit about them a little bit maybe, right? And then you're like, oh, I feel better. I just needed to get that off my chest. Or you're like dreading hanging out with them. I'm sorry, I can't hang out with you. The dog just barked for the first time. I'm really excited. I have to stick it out for this to see where this goes. Like, if you have those relationships in your life where you're dreading hanging out with them, where all you want to do is talk about everything you just experienced when you left, does this bring you joy? If not, discard it. And I don't mean like, discard the body. We're not talking about anything like that. We're not going that way. You're removing them from your general area, not from this earth, please. So, like, I had to do that. I really did. I had a friend, several of them actually, but I had a friend who it finally clicked for me, like, man, every time I hang out with you, I feel heavier afterwards. I feel weighed down, like, God. And then I want to go and talk smack. I want to go and talk about it with my other friends. Like, can you believe that she did this again? Can you believe she said that to me? I can't believe it either. I should hit her next time. So it finally clicked, like, this doesn't bring me joy. Why am I wasting so much time with this? Because I feel I owe her something? Because we've been friends for a long time? This goes for family too. Sometimes you stick out these toxic relationships because you think you owe them something. You don't owe anybody anything. Anything. And I'm not saying you have to be unkind about it. You don't have to be cruel. But I sent her a very kind message when she asked to hang out one time and said, hey, I realize that every time I'm around you, I feel bad. You actually kind of make me feel bad about myself. You're always picking on me. You're always saying these things. You're unkind to others. I don't think I even pointed as many fingers, but I just said, like, I don't feel good around you. I just need some space. And then I got back some expletive deleted kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, good, I made the right call. But like I've done that so many times now since then, and that idea of, does this bring me joy? If you can take that thought and apply it to the relationships in your life, and then start eliminating those, start removing the toxicity, you will notice that you feel so much better. Like this weekend, this is a positive group, is it not? How good do you feel after leaving here with all these people who have the same interests, who are generally pretty upbeat, who just want to hang out and be friends?
Feel amazing.
Right? That's what I'm saying. So, like, you're in control of your life. Why put yourself in a position where you know you're going to feel like dookie afterwards? Just skip that relationship. Do whatever you have to do, and this even goes for your family. I am so sorry for those of you who have toxic family members, because I know it's never easy to look at a family member and say, I can't be around you, especially if you feel like they've done something for you. But please, please, please remember, you are the only one who's got to live your life. You don't owe anybody anything. Do what makes you happy, because it really pays off. So that's step one. Eliminate toxicity, find joy, and it all goes under getting organized. Oh, man. I'm gonna... Water. Don't judge me. I thought I put it over here. Gosh. You guys are so rude to me sometimes. Okay. That's not what I want. All right. Step 2, get social. Try new things. That's tough, right? But we're all here. We already said, like, we feel better when we're here, right? I know it's easy to just stay at home and avoid people, and especially, like, I get it, dude. Like, I stream for a living. This is the first time I've left my house, and I don't know how long. It's so important, though, seriously, because this whole community thing, this is very powerful. Get social. Make some friends. And if you're thinking, yeah, sure, it's just that easy to make friends, right? And then you're thinking like, but people don't like me because I'm weird or something like that. Like that happens all the time. Let me just tell you, I have an alliance with all the spiders in my house. I talk to them regularly. I make sure they know they're not supposed to be in the kitchen or the bathroom. I replace the words to songs with meows, and I sing them to myself. We're all weirdos, man. But you're here, right? Like, everyone makes friends with other weirdos. Like, it's cool. Just be okay with the fact that, like, not everyone's gonna think the stuff you do is super cool, but does it make you happy? Yeah, I haven't gotten a spider bite in years, man. The alliance, it is strong. So like, don't be worried about it. If you're worried that you're not gonna be able to connect with people, that's another thing you can work on. I fully believe that everyone could benefit from some communication training. Seriously, like so many people don't understand that a good part of communicating is listening, and we're really bad at it. So if you're thinking like I struggled to connect with people, don't worry, it's not on you. You can just work on it. It might not be super easy, but it can be fixed. And you are all super awesome, cool people who I'm sure tons of other people would love to be friends with and hang out with. So stop thinking like, this won't work for me, I'm not good at making friends, I'm too weird, people don't understand me. Just remember that spider alliance. Just remember that I replace words with meows, and I still somehow have friends. Like one of them even came here from my hometown and everything. Like my best friend just finally got into this world with me, and I'm so excited. Thanks, yeah. Welcome to Twitch, Taylor. And you should also do a spider alliance. You guys gotta stop killing spiders, it's really bad. Okay, so that's step 2. And you know, what's the other thing that's great about this is getting social and trying new things. One of the things that I recommend we all try is creative hobbies. Because creative hobbies are really cool, and one of the things that I learned about them is that they're the most intrinsically motivating. If any of you guys are artists, like you start working on something, you want to go back to that day in and day out, right? They motivate you when you like what you're doing, and creative outlets tend to be best at that. Music, art, whatever. Like get a coloring book, dude. I love coloring books. Seriously, it sounds silly. I get it, bless you. But coloring is very relaxing. Doing things that are creative and artistic, it's really good for you. And getting social is so important, and if you're struggling with that, like join a community. You guys are all part of an awesome community here, right? Like Twitch, Destiny, wherever you guys came from, this GuardianCon thing, you feel the power of positivity and the power of community when you come to things like this. There are so many other communities. Like, my dad took me to a marble convention once. Did you know that there was marble conventions? I had no idea that was a thing. Like, there are stamp collectors, there's people who do community things for everything. Martial arts, by the way, I think was one of the best communities that I ever joined. Oh, I like that right away. I saw one of these. Martial arts is one of the coolest things I think any of you guys could do for yourselves, especially because everyone in martial arts, for the most part, kind of doesn't have an ego. They remember what it feels like to be in your same position where you come in and you don't know how to do anything. So instead of them making you feel silly for it, they're the first ones to get down next to you on the mat and show you how to do it. So if you're looking for community, what do you like to do? It doesn't matter how weird it is, there is a community there. And if there isn't, believe that you starting one will get people into it. You might have to work, you might have to learn some things. Not everything is as easy and cut and dry as it seems, but community is important. If you don't see one around you that's based on the things that you like, create one. You know how good it feels to be the part or a leader of a community? Where are my broadcaster friends at? Stand up real quick, my community leaders. If you're a streamer, any size, stand up right now. All right, everyone, clap. Let's give them some love. These are people who decided to start a community. You guys all probably feel so good, right? When you go in and you see all these people who think you're awesome. You can sit down, you don't have to stay standing up, sorry. Like, how great does that feel to have community? So many people start on Twitch because that's exactly what they want. They want community. Twitch isn't the only place to find it. It's a great place to do it. But don't let it take you away from the real world. Don't let gaming take you away from the real world. Organize some meetups. Go to some local things. Every time I go to a Twitch Chicago meetup, someone's like, man, I wish they had those in my area. Make it. Just do it yourself. Like seriously, the only reason that there's a Twitch Chicago one is because a broadcaster, Brandon, decided that we needed one. And now it's so big they can't even fit us into most of the normal venues anymore. Yeah. Get social, try new things. Push yourselves a little bit, guys. This world is way cooler than I realized. It's pretty awesome. And like I said, there is a community for everything. If you want further proof of that, look up some obscure hashtags, man. Like seriously. Like I always look for fitted life, Rec, just saying. Hashtag fitted life, I get pumped like, yeah, you also hate snapbacks, yeah. There's a community for everything. Yeah, fitted life, I love it. Everyone's showing me the back of their hats right now. That makes me feel good. You should, snapbacks suck. Okay, so that's the next step. So step 3 in my 5 steps to better mental health is to basically stay busy. And it's a part of, or actually, sorry, it's self-care. It kind of goes in with stay busy, but we'll get to that. Just pretend you didn't hear that. Spoiler alert. Exactly. You guys are good at this. All right, so self-care. You know how I mentioned I'm weird? I wanted an acronym really bad. I wanted to be able to have something that you guys could remember after this and that hopefully would allow me to remember. Because as you have noticed, I don't exactly have notes or things here. Like the last presentation I did was a lot different than this. I had the little confidence monitor, I had my slides, I got nothing here. So the acronym seemed really fitting, but it also kind of just, it worked. So for self-care, if you want to stay chill, shade, S-H-A-D-E. That's what the last finger was kind of, it popped up, we're there. So S, sleep. Get some sleep, dudes. It's so fun to be all team no sleep. I stayed up super late playing video games, but you know you feel bad the next day. You know you feel slow. I get it, dude. I love video games. This is why we're here. I get it. But sleep is so important. It helps you regulate your moods. It helps you to just feel good, and you need it. You need it to be able to process your memories properly. You need it for so many different things, and so many of us are not getting it. And if you're having trouble with that, as someone who believed, since I've been an insomniac since I was a child, I believed that I was team no sleep forever. I got a sleep mask. It's really nice and small. I have it linked in my chat if you want to go and find that. But I just bought it on Amazon. It was like 12 bucks, and it's thin and silky, and it's got these little do-hobbies that go on the nose. The little do-hobbies. And basically, the little things on the nose just make it so that no light gets in. So find a sleep mask that's comfortable for you. I cannot recommend it enough. I travel with it. I need it. And especially for those of you with ADHD brains, it's bad enough when you're laying down to go to sleep and your anxiety is like, hey, let's talk about that thing you did in the 3rd grade. And you're like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm trying to clear my mind. I'm fine. And then you see something across the wall and your ADHD kicks in and you're like, oh, I have a million other things I could be thinking about right now. Wear a sleep mask. That light can be obviously distracting, but on top of that, your mind is going to make associations with all kinds of weird stuff, and your brain is just going to keep going. Block out the sunlight, get a sleep mask. Turn the temperature down in your house. It's a lot easier since our body temperature rises for you to sleep in a cooler room. Get a fan if you need to. It's super great. Meditation. Who meditates? Yes. That makes me happy because a lot of people think meditation is a joke, but like those of you who meditate, it helps, right? It's genuinely like some life-changing stuff. So I meditate before bed every single night. It helps me so much. I do not recommend alcohol, especially not nicotine, before bed. Those can have really bad effects. If you're one of those people who's like, no, I can only fall asleep if I have a glass of bourbon, because that was me for a while. I can only fall asleep if I go out and smoke for a little bit and then have a drink, whatever. Don't do it. It doesn't help you. Alcohol depresses you, yes, but then as soon as it wears off, what happens in the middle of the night? You wake up and you're a little grumpy and usually really thirsty. Just skip it. Do your best to handle this stuff on your own. And I don't mean without help, doctors, medication, whatever. I mean without the use of things like that. Like don't drink before bed if you can avoid it. It really doesn't help. So those are just some basic ideas on sleep. If you want any other suggestions, I've got them listed in that website, or in the blog that I have on my website as well. So that's the S for shade, remember? Because you're staying chill, because you're in the shade. Remember, shade? Yeah. All right, so I really enjoy this next one because I yell about it in my stream all the time. H is for hydration, guys. How many of you have clear pee? Yeah, cool. We're talking about our pee now. Seriously though, guys, did you know that if you are just 1% below optimal in terms of your hydration level, that it starts to impact your mood, your memory, you can get headaches, you can get really tired. A lot of times when we think we're hungry, when we think we need whatever, you're just thirsty. You need to be drinking a lot of water. It helps with your mind. You will feel sharper. It's obviously good for your skin and your body and everything. Hydration is super, super, super key. Please do this. Get a reusable water bottle. Carry this with you everywhere. These are awesome. And by the way, for those of you who are traveling, if you have one of these, you can just dump it out when you're going through the airport, and they have little refill stations of like clean water at the airports. So you don't have to spend money on water bottles. Get a reusable water bottle. Super helpful. SH, we got that so far. A is kind of like a 3-part thing, but it kind of all goes together. Air, sunlight, and nature. Go outside, nerds, come on. Like, seriously, I get it. Like I told you, you can go outside in VR, but like actually go outside. And like I told you, I'm pale. I almost match my pants right now, so you can tell I haven't taken my own advice very much on that. But it is super important. Like sunlight itself is really good for you. Air is super necessary. And nature is really cool. Did you know that nature, just like taking a walk through the woods, can improve your memory? Yeah, that's some real shit right there. That actually works. There was a study that was done. They took a group of people, they gave them a memory test, then they split them into 2 groups. One group walked through the city, one group walked through the woods. They came back, they retested the memory. The ones that walked through the woods did, I want to say, it was like 20-something% better. The ones who walked through the city didn't really have any noticeable improvement. Fresh air is great, it's definitely necessary, but nature, we're all connected to this world, man. Like, it sounds like some crazy hippie stuff when I say it, but like, we are connected. We are connected to our world, to our environment, to our universe. Go be a part of it. And the other thing that I found that was super, super interesting is I read an article that was talking about how awe is actually very effective at treating or helping to treat the symptoms of PTSD. So for people who are really struggling, nature is the most likely to elicit feelings of awe. Go and sit by water for a few minutes and you stare at that vast water and you're like, wow. Look for those wow moments. Find some awe in your life. For me, I experience awe when I listen to certain types of music. We do this in streams sometimes. We'll play music from people who are especially talented, have really, really powerful presence and really like emotive, like everything. Like you watch it and you feel like they are really like singing their souls out and you connect to it, and that awe, that is powerful, that is good for you, and you are most likely to get that in nature. So please, go outside. just go outside, guys, it's okay. We'll all survive this together. You know, take care of your skin and everything, wear sunscreen, but just go outside. And if you have to schedule this in on your calendar, literally do it. I schedule my leisure time. I put it on my calendar that I'm going to be reading for a half of an afternoon. I do what I do to make sure that I can do these things that I know are really important for our bodies. So the D in shade is diet. This one is upsetting. I know, guys. I like food too. I get it.
Does ice cream count as a diet?
I'm not talking about dieting as in like you guys all need to go on keto now. But I learned something super fascinating. Did you know that 95% of the serotonin that makes its way into your brain originates in your gut? You knew that. All right. Oh, I was like, who said yeah? But that's awesome. I get excited when people know that because no one else usually does. The things going on in your stomach are super important. I'm not saying that you guys can't eat anything that you like and that you have to just go on like the water diet, but just think about it. Try to eat more fruits and vegetables. Try not to eat a ton of processed crap. Do your best to be good to your body and especially to your stomach because it impacts your mind. The bacteria in your stomach can actually impact your personality, your moods, your ability to control and regulate your emotions. A lot of that comes from here. And once again, like I said, trust your gut. This is doing a lot for you. Be nice to it. Like, you know, when you pull up to Taco Bell and your gut's like, no, and you're like, yeah. Your gut is telling you no because it knows what you're about to experience after, but it's also like, please, please be nice to me. This doesn't help me at all. You know, eat the things you like. Be good to yourself. I get it. I love food. Like I said, I'm going to smash a ton of it into my face later. It's going to be great. Intermittent fasting, by the way, if you do some research on that, I love fasting. Like, you can raise your hands if any of you guys do this with me. But that's something that, from my research and understanding, can be really great at helping your stomach to have like a little reset mode to kind of recover from some of the horrible things we do to our bodies. Yeah, it's the whole body. It's autophagy. It's a million things. You guys do some research. It's really cool. So that's the D. I just gave you my D in shade. Yeah, you pervs. Whoop. All right, so the E in shade. Another one that a lot of us like to ignore, myself included. Can anyone guess what it is? Exercise. Oh my gosh, you guys are so smart. Wow, yeah, it's exercise. Good job, guys. Seriously though, the American Psychiatric Association mandates 30 minutes of it. If you go and seek treatment, if you talk to a therapist or something, they're going to tell you you got to work out for 30 minutes a day. And that might seem daunting. I get it. A lot of us like to do the whole, I'm too busy, I just don't have time. You have time. I'm telling you, you guys have time. Yeah, seriously. You're doing it for your health. You're doing it for your longevity. You can do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, 10 minutes at lunch. Do whatever you have to do, but get 30 minutes of exercise every day. I mean, if you guys watched Legally Blonde, then you know exercise creates endorphins, and endorphins make people happy. I saw someone shaking their head at me. I see you just like, you just referenced Legally Blonde in this. I am so ashamed. It is a good movie. Yeah, and I bet half the people in here are not willing to admit it, but I know you know how to do the bend and snap. Don't even try and lie. Don't even. All right, so that's shade. And an important part of shade, I wanted meditation to be a bigger part of it, but I couldn't think of a fun way to make that an acronym, like SHADEM. So just remember, meditation, I really think, should be a part of your self-care routine. And do some research if you don't believe me. MASH, but that's not as fun. I can be all like, stay chill in the shade, but like, you like potatoes, make them mashed. I don't know, man. You know, like, I couldn't think of anything cool that would work for it. All right, so that's the self-care thing. Man, this is kind of cool doing it this way. Like, how much does this room fit? Like 200? Somewhere like that? All right, thank you. Oh, wow, we ran through this so fast, you guys. I'm so sorry. I talk a lot. My bad. Here's the deal. The very last steps are pretty easy. It's routine. Routine is different from scheduling. Get yourself a daily routine. Do things in the morning every day. For me, what helps me the most is every morning I wake up, I meditate, I do my affirmations, I do some visualization, I do some reading, a little bit, either personal or professional development-wise, not Harry Potter, as much as I love it. And I make sure that I meditate every single day, all of those things. So get yourself a routine. Once again, everyone likes to pretend they don't have time. You have time. You have time for a routine. Make sure that you do that. The very last step in my 5 steps to better mental health, and again, I'm so sorry, guys. It's really hard to keep track of time without like getting lost, you know, ADHD brain. I was worried if I kept checking my watch too much that I would just completely lose my place. So 5 is talk to someone. And when I say talk to someone, I'm not just saying if you're sad, talk to someone. I'm saying talk to someone. Because I feel like if we do a better job of communicating with each other, if we do talk to each other more, maybe some of these things, some of these people who are feeling lost, who are feeling misunderstood, will feel less like that. So talk to each other, guys. Work on communication. The more you work on yourselves, the more you realize how much the world opens up to you, truly. The more I work on communication, the more I feel like I understand people. And you know that whole thing about seek first to understand, then be understood? That is legit, dude. Do some research. Learn a little bit about communication, and you'll realize that there are so many cues you're missing. There are so many things that we are missing. So talk to each other, guys. Talk to each other. And then obviously, the other part of that, if you're sad, talk to someone. You have this community. Raise your hand if you'd be willing to talk to someone if they were hurting. That's what's up. Talk to someone, you guys. Seriously. Talk to a doctor if you need to. Talk to a professional. Talk to each other. There's resources available. I work with a great organization, Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression. If you want help, if you can't afford it, they can help you get at least 3 therapy sessions in your area at no charge. There are things out there. I'm telling you. There are resources. There are people who care. This all matters, you guys. Life is beautiful. Like I said, I could not have predicted where any of this would go. When I was 15 and I wanted to end my life, I had no way of knowing that I would be standing here in front of you guys trying to encourage you all to live your lives, to learn about yourselves, because it is so exciting. Raise your hand if you started working on yourself and realized that you are interesting. Yeah. No, don't you give me that little bit. You guys are interesting people. Like there is so much going on in your mind, in your body, in our world, with each other. Learn. Take some time and work on yourself. If you're struggling in your job, if something is not right in your life, I'm going to tell you the same thing regardless. Work on yourself. Start here because you're not going to have a good life if you're not a good you. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. You've got to be your 100%, your 10 out of 10 you, if you want your job to go well, if you want your relationships to be healthy, if you want to live the life that you want to live, you got to make it for yourself, and you got to start here. Work on you. So when I said I wanted to make sure there was one main thing that you walked away from here from, it was that you are in control, but you are not alone. You guys are incredible people. I've gotten to know a lot of you, and it's so cool. Like, you guys really are incredible people. Your lives have so much meaning. You have value, and you are loved. Please take care of yourselves. Now, unfortunately, I'm so sorry, you guys. I really feel bad that I went over on the time here. I hope that it's all right with you guys. But we do these mental health streams every month, so you can come in and share. And if anyone wants to send me some of what they've been doing for themselves, I'd be happy to share it on social media. Maybe I can create a form for you guys to share your mental health tips, because I really had intended to talk to you guys a lot more. But I super appreciate you all sticking it out through this. And, you know, I'm a big fan of Mr. Rogers. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, exactly. If you do some research on him, like, that dude is awesome. So he believed in the idea that our emotions are both mentionable and manageable, and I love telling people that. He says that to kids all the time. But he also had this very, very beautiful speech once, and I really wanted to just end with that before we started talking to you, and unfortunately I made it to where you guys can't talk. Sorry, typical streamer, right? But this is how I'd like to wrap things up, is by taking another page out of good old Fred Rogers' book. So this is what he said. All of us have special ones in our lives that have loved us into being. If you would just take 10 seconds with me, I'd like you all to think of the people who have helped you become who you are. 10 seconds of silence. I'll watch the time. Thank you, guys. Bring this one back again. Thank you. All right, like I said, I really wanted to talk to you guys. It is super important. I know a lot of you have been working on yourself, so I apologize again that this went over. But I'll create something so that you can share your feedback as well, because I do want to hear from you and what you are doing for yourselves to keep you feeling good every day. And thank you, seriously, for being here today. I really hope you have an amazing time the rest of this trip. I really think that you will. But take care of yourselves, guys. Go push yourself a little. And please be safe. Please, everyone, be safe at these after parties. Watch your drinks. Trust your gut. Okay? Have a good time, guys.